Good morning. We are today going to be kind of starting a new unit. We're going to kind of go through the rest of our curriculum at a touch and go pace, just so we can kind of touch on everything that we are supposed to for Math 1 during this shortened period of time. So we're going to actually start on page, I believe this is page 25 today. 25. And we are going to be starting something called polynomials. And you guys have seen polynomials before towards the beginning of the year, so some of this will kind of be a review as we go through the unit. Today we're really just going to be talking about what polynomials are and how to name them. So first of all, polynomials, to where you can see, there you go. They're expressions or math sentences, right, that contain variables, coefficients, and or constants. All right, so really polynomials they're just expressions, but expressions have certain names to them. So that's what we're going to talk about next. So naming polynomials. They have two names. So you can think about it like a first name and a last name. And their first name describes the polynomial's degree. So we're going to talk about degrees here in just a second. So the first name describes the polynomial degree. All right. And so a degree is basically the highest exponent that you have in any one term. All right, so a degree, we'll write that down. It's the highest number of variables or the highest exponent in one, you still see that, in one term. All right, so we're going to do a bunch of examples down here. So we're going to make kind of like a little T-chart here. We're going to say example. Then we're going to have the degree. And then we're going to have the name. So remember, this is just the first name, okay? First name only here. All right, and we'll do few of these. So, and we'll go in order. So the first one that we're going to talk about is if something has a 0 degree, that's going to be something just like maybe 6. So a number of some sort. That's going to have a degree of 0 because it has 0 exponents, it has 0 variables, and we call this a constant. Okay, so that would be the first name of this one polynomial here. So our second example might be something like 2x. So now we do have a variable on here, so that's going to have a degree of 1. It's saying you have one variable here, okay, or that our exponent here is 1. We have an imaginary exponent of 1, and we call this linear because we really could graph 2x and it would create a line. So that's where we get the name linear from. All right, another example might be something like 3x squared plus 2. Now we don't really care right now how many terms it has. All we're looking for is that largest exponent. So our largest exponent is here. That tells us that our degree is 2. So the degree talks about the highest exponent or the largest number of variables. This would be like x times x, which would really in turn tell us that there are two variables in this one term. So we're going to call this one quadratic. All right. And so for the next one, let's do something like maybe we have 1/2 x to the third power plus 3x. Okay, again, right now we don't really care how many terms we have, but we want to look at the variable that has the biggest exponent. That's going to tell us our degree number. So we don't really care about this one right now. We're looking at this one. It's got the highest exponent. Our degree is 3. When you have a degree of 3, we call that a cubic polynomial. Cubic. All right, our next example, we might just have something like y to the 4th power. Okay, we could have some other stuff here. We could have like 6y to the 4th power plus 2. We could have a bunch of different stuff, but we're always looking for that highest exponent here. And our highest exponent is going to be that 4, so it tells us our degree is 4. This we are going to call quartic. So be careful because quadratic and quartic are very, very similar. Make sure that quadratic is your degree to the 2nd power. Our quartic is our degree of 4 here. All right. I have a couple more to do. So the last one that you really need to remember the name of is going to be to the 5th power. So we could have something like negative m to the 5th power plus 3x to the 3rd power. Again, we don't care about how many we have. We want to look for the one with the biggest exponent, which is going to be 5. So our degree is 5, and we're going to call this quintic. All right, so as you do your work today, I am going to ask that you refer back to your notes because this is a lot of vocabulary for you today. Definitely okay to look back and check yourself. Make sure that you're matching up the highest exponent with the correct name. Now, if you get anything higher than 5, okay, so let's say we have, I'm going to make up a crazy one here. Let's do like x to the 10th plus 2x to the 5th, y to the 3rd, plus 7. Looks a little crazy. Our biggest exponent, okay, our biggest exponent is 10. Now, our second biggest exponent, technically we would add these two together, and our second biggest exponent here would be 8, because we would really have 8 variables in this whole thing. We have x, 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 x. We have y, y, y. Okay, and then this one, of course, has a degree of 0. But we want the highest one, so our degree here is 10. But anything that is greater, so as long as your exponent is greater or equal to 6, so anything above 6, 6 or 6 plus, right? Anything bigger than 6 is just going to be referred to as a polynomial to the nth degree. Okay, so a polynomial to the nth degree. All right, so that's their first names. Now their second name or their last name has to do with how many terms there are. Okay, so the last name describes the number of terms. All right, so we'll review real quick. We do know what terms are. We've talked about this in the past, but a term, okay, or terms, they're parts of an expression. So a term is a part of an expression separated by plus or minus. So it's basically how many parts of the expression are there really. All right. We're going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to talk about a table here. So we're going to do an example. We're going to do the terms, so the number of terms, and the name. All right, so our first example, that's going to be like if we just had like a 2x, right, or just a 6. We just have that one single term there. So let's play with 5x. There we go. So the number of terms, that would be 1, and we call this a monomial. So you'll see that it really always ends in this term nomial here. Okay, they're all going to end in nomial. So monomial, M-O is like just meaning singular. You just have one of those terms there. All right, so if you have 2 terms, that's going to look something like maybe 4x squared plus 2x. Okay, 2 terms, 1, 2, separated by a plus sign. 2 terms, and we're going to call this one, root word for 2 is going to be bi, and then we follow it with nomial. Kind of like polynomial, right? So binomial means 2 terms. Our next one we're going to do, let's say we've got like 3x squared plus 4x plus 7. We have 3 terms, 1, 2, and 3. And our root word for 3 is tri. And then we follow it with nomial. All right. If you have any more than 3, so if you have 4 or more terms, so that's when it's going to get kind of long. So let's say we have something like x to the 3rd minus 2x squared plus 1/2 x minus 8. All right, so we have 1 term and then a minus sign, the 2nd term, plus sign, 3rd term, minus sign, 4th term. Okay, so we have 4 terms. So anything that is 4 or more terms, so greater than 4, that means 4 plus, like anything more than that, is just going to be called this polynomial. And poly does mean multiple, right? So polynomial. All right. So we're going to do a couple practice problems down here at the bottom. We're just going to name a few of these. Remember, we're going to look from these names up here to describe the degree of your polynomial, and then we're going to look for these names for our last name to describe the number of terms there. All right, so let's get to some examples here. The first one that we're going to do is going to be 5x to the 3rd plus 2x minus 4. All right, so our degree, highest degree here is going to be 3. That tells us it's a cubic. And then the number of terms is also going to be 3. 1, 2, 3. So that tells us it is a trinomial. So this one is called a cubic trinomial. All right, second example. It's going to be something like 4m to the 5th minus 6m to the 4th plus 3m squared minus m plus 7. Okay, so we have quite a bit going on here. So we want to talk about the number of degree. So we're looking for that highest exponent, which is going to be a 5, m to the 5th power. So if we look back up, 5th power tells us this is a quintic. So we're going to say degree is 5. This is going to start off being a quintic. And then our second thing we need to look for is the number of terms. And our number of terms here, if we count them out, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we also have 5 terms here. And remember, anytime you have more than 4 terms, you have a polynomial. So this one is called a quintic polynomial. All right, we're going to do one last one. If we can squeeze it down here on the bottom. And this one is going to be, I'm going to mix this one up a little bit. It's going to be a little bit out of order. So negative 4x to the 3rd plus 2x y to the third, this one's going to be a little trickier, minus 6. Okay, so our degree here, we want to look for the highest degree. Now, you might think it's just 3, but if you look at this second term here, you actually have this 3y to the third power, but you also have x to the first. And if you remember, you're supposed to put those together. So in this term, really right here, we actually have 4 variables. We have 3 y's and 1 x. So our degree here is actually 4. Okay, that tells us that we have a quartic. I'll write this down here somewhere if we can fit it. Maybe over here. We have a quartic. And then we count the number of terms. So we have 1 term, 2 terms, and 3 terms. So terms 3, which tells us we have a trinomial. So we have a quartic trinomial for our last one. All right, you guys are going to do an IXL lesson today. It's really going to be asking you about the number of terms, the degree of the polynomial, and if you get up to that 70, 80 mark, then it's going to start asking you to name them, just like we did down here. So for the beginning part, all you're going to be asked to do is talk about what is the degree of each one and what are the number of terms of each polynomial.